Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Mathis. We are a premier ATP with the Project Management Institute. Today, in 7 minutes to PM Mastery, we're going to talk about interpreting the project lifecycle for the PMP exam. Sometimes people go to the project, take their project PMP test, and then what happens is they struggle a little bit because they're expecting it to be all about traditional project management. So let's break this apart for you so that you can see the different life cycles and how to have the right mindset. So first off, there's three different type of life cycles for the purpose of your test. There's going to be predictive or plan driven. That's going to be your traditional. There's going to be agile or change driven. That's going to be your agile or scrum. And then you're going to have hybrid, which is going to be a merging of the two. So predictive, I think, is one of the easier ones for us to catch because it's going to have constraints. And we're going to do a deep dive into that in a moment. Agile is also easier to catch because once you understand what the controls are and what the circumstances with agile, it allows you to be able to think agile for the purpose of that test. Hybrid, I think, is the most difficult of these three because it's going to blend both of those there. So let's start off and do a deep dive into predictive or plan driven. This is the oldest version. This is the most traditional. And so it's sequential phases. It's detailed upfront planning, and construction would be a good example of this. And so when they talk about predictive or plan driven, they're talking about a lot of constraints. It's going to be planned up front, and it's going to then be delivered typically at the end. So projects worship the whole planning process, the baselining that the plan has. And so projects are run through initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, closing. And they typically, there's going to be a project manager who's in charge. He or she has the control of the project. They're running that project, and the team supports them and reports to them. Formal constraints, formal sequence, just like you see here. Changes don't happen without going through change control. Do you feel the structure? Do you feel the formality? You're going to have that. And of course, that's the oldest version of project management. So you're going to have that on your test. But what you're wanting to do is understand that they're not going to have a section for predictive and a section for agile. This is going to bounce between questions. Let's look at the agile side, change driven. So iterative, adaptive, frequent delivery. Software development is a good example of this. But in agile, what you're doing is you're running things through short sprints. So it focuses on change, flexibility, not on long project planning. You're not going to have a huge monstrous plan that you spent 7 months planning for agile. That's not going to happen. So it runs projects in sprints or iterations from 2 to 4 weeks. At the end of each sprint, you're handing that off to the customer. The roles are even different on the agile and the change driven side. You've got scrum master, product owner, development team, and they typically have a lot of authority. They're not asking permission most of the time to do something. They are basically making the decision and running with this. Now, one of the things that we've had people ask questions on, since there is no project manager on the agile side, does the scrum master, is that not another word for project manager? And let me just say, not at all. Scrum Master has no authority over the team, no authority over the product owner, and we're going to talk about each of these a little bit more here in just a second. But Scrum Master is not another name for the product owner, and they will try to trip you up, or for the project manager, because they'll try to trip you up with that term Scrum Master. So hybrid, let's talk about the third one. It combines the two. I think this one's difficult, but here's how it typically flows on the test. And let's see, and hopefully it'll be something similar to this. They combine both approaches. Hybrid will include running the project or most of the project, potentially using sprints or iterations. So you'll pick up, oh, this is agile in how they're doing it. But then you'll see that there's a project manager role is typically in the hybrid test questions. So you're thinking, okay, the project manager shouldn't be here. The team makes the call on this. That lets you know it's kind of a hybrid. And most of us in many of our projects, if you're using any of the Agile framework, most of us are doing some type of hybrid anyway, because we don't have full authority over here on the side with the Agile. And so we are still having to bounce back and forth to our PMO or to our group. So don't worry about the project manager. When you see the project manager in those situations and the rest of it sounds very Agile, look at the question real closely and try to determine what they're asking you. The project manager being there just mainly tells you that it's hybrid, but it also is letting you know that this thing is going to have a lot of components that's going to be a little different than traditional or agile, and so that's okay. All right, so match your current question to the right approach. So whatever approach that you pick up on, that's how you want to answer that question. So choose a life cycle based on requirements clarity, risk, stakeholder need. Some questions will name the life cycle while others will not. They'll describe what's happening. They'll describe the roles and responsibility, but you'll all of a sudden catch on that what's happening. So let me give you a couple of real simple sentences. Sherry is a product owner. What kind of project is this? So that might be all you find out is she's a product owner. And so if you've got a product owner is typically the one who's regrooming the backlog. And so the product owner, if you have a product owner, you're typically running at least agile or hybrid, but at least agile because you've got a product owner. Notice the second one. Tom has finished creating his WBS. That's a work breakdown structure. What kind of project is this? Well, a WBS typically is on the plan driven side. That's going to be your traditional project. So they didn't tell you it's traditional, but in the scenario, knowing what they're doing, that lets you know what it is. And then notice the last one. Karis, the project manager, is meeting with the Scrum Master. What kind of project is this? This is going to be that hybrid we're talking about. So you have a Scrum Master, but you also then have a project manager. So just don't even think about the project manager on those and read the rest of the question as if you didn't have one. How would you answer it? It's going to have that agile framework in most of those cases. And so that will allow you an opportunity to be able to get it straight. So this is a big tricky thing on the test because you're switching from question to question from traditional to agile, and they might even bring in the term Scrum. So let me just chase that rabbit a moment, okay? Scrum and Agile are going to fit together. Scrum is really the largest format of Agile, and so they might intertwine those two, go from Agile to the word Scrum. So for Scrum, you're thinking about the product owner, like we talked about, who regrooms the backlog. You're talking about the customer who's working with the product owner, and then you're talking about your team who sets how much work they're going to be able to do per 2 or 3 week sprint. And so it's still structured the same way, but they might throw that in just to throw you off a little bit. So if you need additional help, please contact me. I'm Keith Mathis at the Mathis Group, and so we'd love to work with you. We do boot camps every other month, and so we'd love to have you in there. Have a great day.